Welcome to Kabbalah Explained Simply. This week we're going to continue talking about what are the Sefirot. In our last session, which I'm sure Rachel will probably post a link to in the chats, we talked about the Tree of Life, this structure which is very popular. A lot of people are searching for this all the time, for the Tree of Life. What's the Tree of Life? It's in the Bible, it's in mysticism, spirituality, all the New Age methods. They're all taking this Tree of Life, which is a structure of 10 Sefirot. They're they're materializing it, connecting it to colors, to body parts, to karma, to chakras, to whatnot. And last week we gave a bit of a background on what the Tree of Life is, and 2 weeks ago. And today we're going to delve a little bit deeper into what these Sefirot are. So if you have any questions, post them in the chat. I also integrated some of the questions we had on the previous session on the Tree of Life into this session today. So hopefully you'll get answers, and hopefully you'll get new questions as well. So feel free to ask them, and let's get rolling. What we'll start with is we will start with a quick recap from last week. So in case you missed, 2 weeks ago, last session, in case you missed it, don't worry about it. I'm going to give a quick recap of what we went over, and it will also be a good revision for those of you who have already seen it. All right, so let me get my pointer ready in case I need to point at stuff. There it is. All right. So what are the Sefirot? So to understand what the Sefirot are, we need to understand where they came from, what it even talks about, this structure called 10 Sefirot. So it all starts almost 6,000 years ago with Adam, the first Kabbalist who lived 5,780 years ago. He wrote a book called Raziel the Angel, where he describes the system of the souls. In that system, he writes it in a very, very concealed way. It's all written in code. He talks about amulets there, and that's the birth of the greatest misconception in Kabbalah, is that there are physical objects that have spiritual meaning. So I want to break that myth first of all. There is no physical object that exists that has any spirituality in it. Nothing. It does not exist. And this is a huge misconception. A lot of it came from the book of Adam, Raziel the Angel, who talks about amulets there. You see, this is a picture from the book. It has seemingly these illustrations, and people took that literally, and they wrote it on parchment, and they think that it protects them from things. But it protects no more than these glasses do, or my phone, or anything physical, because nothing spiritual can have any power in the physical. So this was Adam, and he was the first person to discover this structure which later on was called the Tree of Life. And then a couple of thousand years later, Abraham wrote the book of Creation, where he described for the first time a structure of 10 Sefirot, and that book too is written in code. It's very difficult to understand. A few hundreds of years later, Moses, who wrote the Bible, mentions the Tree of Life. It doesn't directly mention the Sefirot, but that's what it talks about. It talks about the 10 Sefirot, but it's written in the language of roots and branches. And finally, then we have a couple of thousand years later, approximately, a little bit less, we have Rashbi, who wrote the Zohar. Let me give you a clearer image of that. There you go. So Rashbi, who wrote the Zohar 1800 years ago, and this is the first time where the connection between our thoughts, intentions, are connected to the upper worlds. It was supposed to be hidden until the 16th century, but it was discovered by someone who went to the market, bought some fish, and found that the book of Zeir was wrapping these fish, and then they sent a whole bunch of people to the market to find the rest of the concealed pages of the Zeir. The book of Zeir too is also written in code. So we keep going, and then we have two very strong foundations which already talk explicitly about the Tree of Life. The Ari, who wrote the book Tree of Life, that's where this name was coined, Tree of Life. That's where it became so popular. It's the first time that he described the spiritual worlds in a clear, structured, scientific way. So even if you have no spiritual attainment, you can still study it and understand some kind of structure. And this was the beginning of the last phase of human development. And then we had Baal Sulam, who lived in the previous century, and he wrote the book, The Study of the Ten Sefirot, which interprets Ari's Tree of Life. He's also called Baal Sulam. Sulam in Hebrew means ladder, because he created a ladder for anyone in humanity to be able to climb back up to the spiritual worlds. So that was a general overview of the different Kabbalists that reveal this system. And in fact, all these Kabbalists, Adam, Abraham, Rashbi, Ari, and Baal Sulam, they were all the same soul that reincarnated. Every time this soul returned, it took the same structure and it explained it more. It went into higher resolution, more details, suited every time for the generation. Until finally Baal Sulam, who actually wrote this for us. So Baal Sulam is probably the closest, most accessible Kabbalist for our generation. All right, so let's keep going. All right, so now that we have a bit of the background of the Tree of Life, why it's named the Tree of Life, the Sefirot, etc., let's talk a little bit about what the Sefirot are. So you've probably seen this structure, you know, of those 10 Sefirot, which we saw before. We'll see it again. The Sefirot, they don't represent anything in our world, and that's important to really kind of internalize. It doesn't talk at all about any parts of our body. Some of it is resembled to parts of our body, but that's only because everything Kabbalah talks about, all Kabbalists write in the language of roots and branches. So they might talk about something that's called a peh, which literally means mouth, but it's talking about a spiritual object, not a corporeal one. So the word Sephirah, it comes from the word sapphire, which is luminous, which shines basically, because every Sephirah holds in it the potential for a corrected state. And when a Sephirah is corrected, then it basically illuminates. Now, every Sephirah is a quality, and it's a different quality. So, you know, different things, they can't really be as one because they're different. So they have different qualities. So the way the 10 Sefirot become a single structure, which actually is the only structure that exists in reality, and we'll get to that in a few minutes, is when the different Sefirot, all according to their own role, when they start complementing one another, when they start working together as one. You could say a little bit like in the human body, when the different organs, they each have a different role, but together they build the human body, right? So if you just take a heart, then it's a pump, and if you take a brain, then it's like a computer. But it's not a body, it's not a person, it's not a higher level. So each Sefirah, you could say, is the same, meaning that it has its own unique role in the system, but what we're really interested in is the emergent form of what happens when the Sefirot are connected. And that is done through the connection of the different Sefirot. All right, let's keep going. And if you have questions, then please write them in the chat. Hopefully we'll get to them. Okay, so what are we looking at now? Right now, we're looking at fractals, which follow a pattern of self-similarity. And why is this relevant? You know, it looks like some kind of a geometrical structure. Why is this relevant for our session? Because it's important to understand that everything in reality is self-similar, and so are the Sefirot. So what self-similarity means, that, you know, if I pause this for a second, which I can't, but if I would pause it, then I would see this structure here as a certain structure. And when I start zooming into it like we are now, then we see, as much as we zoom in, we keep finding the same structure over and over again. And that is what the 10 Sefirot are. So everything is a 10, and it's not by coincidence that we have 10 fingers and that we count on the decimal number system, which it could seem that that we could choose other counting systems like base 4. So in base 4, if you want to count, say, if you want to count to 10 in base 4, that would be 22, 0, 1, 2, 3, 10, and then 11, 12, 13, 20, and then 21, 22, etc. So you can count in different bases, but there is a reason why we ended up with a decimal number system, is because this concept that is most easily conceivable by us is this concept of a 10. Right? And this stems from the fact that these 10 Sefirot, this tree of life, is the building blocks of everything in reality. Every thought you have, every desire you have, everything that's formed, everything that's created, and we're going to get to that in a moment about the entire creation, how it's built and how it created, altogether 10 Sefirot. So that's why everything in reality is a 10. So going back to self-similarity, which it's a beautiful representation of how the 10 Sefirot are. Like the more you zoom in, you can take 10 Sefirot and you zoom in and you find again the 10 Sefirot, and you zoom in and again. And you see this in nature in a lot of places. So this is another example of self-similarity. So you have a structure of a leaf, and if you zoom in to one of the parts of the leaf, then you find again the complete structure. So this leaf here, this part in red, if you zoom into it, you would get the exact same leaf that's in blue. And if you zoom into one of these little parts in red, not petals, what are they called? So if you zoom into one of them again, you'll again find the same structure. And this is in all places in nature. It's pretty fascinating when you start thinking about it. It's actually also kind of mind-blowing that you just keep finding the same structure. You zoom in, you want to get more, and you find the same. It's pretty crazy. Another beautiful example of self-similarity in nature is the broccoli. It's a certain type of broccoli. And if you zoom into a certain part of it, then you find again this entire structure. And if you zoom in again, you'll find again the entire structure. So self-similarity exists in nature, and it's a beautiful thing. And it comes from the fact that everything is built from these 10 Sefirot, which follow the same structure of self-similarity. Also, the concept of a minyan, which is something that you might have heard of. It's very common in Judaism. A minyan is a 10. And the literal interpretation is that you need 10 people to form a prayer. But really that stems from the fact that you need a complete structure called a 10, called a minyan, and it can be with 2 people or with 6 or with 15. But you need to have at least 2 people, and I'll explain maybe later on why you need at least 2 and you can't do it alone. So when you connect to that structure, then it's called a minyan, it's called a 10. All right, let's keep going. Let's go a little more into the actual structure of the 10 Sefirot. But before we do, I want to show you a clip. It's actually a premiere of a new course that's on the science of human emergence. And I'm actually showing you the last video of the course, but the last video leads exactly to this topic. So I thought it would be nice to see it, and also to premiere it for the first time ever to the public. So you're watching an exclusive premiere. The course is called The Science of Human Emergence, and you'll be able to find it on Kabbalah. We're building a new Kabbalah, a new platform, which hopefully you'll enjoy, and it will be there once we launch by the end of this month. I can see there are some questions there as well. Just while I'm showing the slides, I can't see the questions, but now that I've closed it, I can see, so I will get to them. But first, let's watch a clip. So this is from the science of human emergence, and let's take a look. So, there is a human emergent state, and Kabbalists are the scientists that have found a way to tap into it. In this final video, we're finally going to reveal exactly how they did it. Remember when you were a kid, young and innocent, and you had all these meaningful questions like, why am I alive? What's the purpose of all of this? What is this world we live in? And like most kids, you probably were ignored or got some superficial response that didn't really satisfy your need for answers. And so these existential questions typically get repressed in most of us as we grow older. Not in you though. Just like the unique imaginal cells in the caterpillar that can sense the newly emerging reality of the butterfly, you have a sense that there has to be more to life than what you're familiar with. That the grand scheme of things is much, much bigger than what we know, and you just can't ignore it. So, where do these meaningful questions and feelings come from? Remember that individualistic software we spoke about? You know, the one that's preventing us from sensing the emergent state? Well, your questions about the meaning of life and the nature of existence actually come from a single point within you that's connected to a different kind of software. A tiny point of desire that's linked to a deeper level of reality. Kabbalists call this the point in the heart. And they say that its awakening is the beginning of its development. But it starts out as just a point. It has no mass, no area, no volume. It has only potential. And it holds in it the entire DNA of our emergent state. But for now, you just feel it like an itch, an inconvenience, maybe even a sense of hope. Something that's always there in the back of your mind, not letting you rest. Something that's pushing you to grow and to discover. Now, every human being has that point within. But just like in the evolving caterpillar, it lights up only in some people at first. They are the imaginal cells of the human network. And those who develop that point can also be called Kabbalists. They're just ordinary people like you and me, who felt an awakening of that point in their hearts, but nothing could shut it off. So they began to nurture that point, connect with it, engage with it, and they learned how to create an environment where that point could grow into a new sensor, a non-material organ that can perceive the emergent state of humanity. And over generations, they developed an empirical method, a science of how to nurture that point, and they documented their findings and discoveries. And like fractals in nature that have a repeating pattern, no matter how close you zoom in, they found that the emergent state, or in other words, the structure of the human network, is also fractal. And they refer to this structure as the Ten Sefirot. This means that whether one person discovers it, or a group of people, or all of humanity, they all find that same structure. And every time another person develops their point in their heart and discovers that structure, it sends a ripple effect throughout the entire network, which accelerates the awakening of additional points, of these imaginal cells that contribute to the evolution of humanity. So, when Kabbalists say that a person can change the world, they don't mean it as a figure of speech, they mean it literally. Bala Sulam, the preeminent Kabbalist of the previous century, wrote that if one is rewarded, he or she sentences themselves and the whole world to a scale of merit. They also found that the best way for people to develop their points in their hearts is to do it together. When people begin to inspire each other's points in their hearts, they mimic their emergent state of connection. And as a result, they develop much, much faster. So, we've built an environment where you can do just that, and we invite you to connect, to become an imaginal cell, to grow that point and unlock your next level of development. Listen, if you feel this awakening now, don't let it go away. Embrace it, nurture it, grow it. So it's the end of the course, but a whole new beginning. All right, now my sound is on. So what I said is, I hope you enjoyed it, you enjoyed that video, and I see that you were clicking the like button there, so that's appreciated. Hopefully that means you enjoyed it, and if you're not yet on Kabbalah, then you should be, and you don't need to take my word for it. You can probably hear from many students who are watching us now in Kabbalah, and I'm sure, if you're in Kabbalah, click the like button and then we'll see. Or write a comment in the chat. Let's see how many are from Kabbalah. You actually don't know. But anyway, you should sign up. You'll find a link there. it's still the old platform of Kabbyu, but it's awesome, and you'll find really interesting stuff there. But anyway, let's get back. Hopefully, I'm seeing in the comments now that there's no sound. Okay, good. So sound is back. We'll continue in a second. I just want to take a few questions that I found in the chats. So a question from James: how are the Sefirot related to us humans? So the Sefirot are very much related to us humans because we need to build this structure of 10 Sefirot. And by building this structure within us, internally, it's not an external thing we do, by building 10 Sefirot within us, by that we become in equivalence with the system of creation. It would be like, it's what, put it this way, the lack of attaining the structure of a 10 Sefirot is what portrays the shattered reality we see around us. Because just like we see a shattered reality around us, a reality of wars and famine and coronavirus and imbalance, it's simply a result of us having a shattered structure of the 10 Sefirot within us. All we need to do is we need to do something small, a small fix on that structure, and then immediately we'll find that we're part of a system that's in perfection. It's a fundamental, it's a very important action that we need to make, and we'll get to that soon. I can still see a comment here that you can't hear. I hope you can, that it's maybe just on Marcus throat can't hear you. So guys, if you can just confirm that you can hear okay, I would appreciate that, just so I don't talk to myself for too long. Okay, so hopefully there's a slight delay, so you'll hear me what I just said a few seconds ago, and then I'll see you in a few seconds. So hopefully you can hear me. Anyway, okay, so James, I hope that answers your question. It's related to us because we are also formed of those 10 Sefirot, and everything that we perceive as shattered is simply a lack of having that structure within. Another question from Karen: does our 10 represent something similar? Is the 10 to reach these qualities between us? So from your question, Karen, I assume that you're in Kabbyu, and I assume that you're in a 10. So for those of you who don't know, in order to build an environment that supports building this structure of the 10, we have what we call 10s, which is basically a small group of people. It can be 8 or 9 or 10 or 11, it doesn't matter, because 10 is a quality of students that interact within another in order to recreate this system of 10 Sefirot. So yes, so the 10, it represents exactly that. It represents a 10 Sefirot, and a little bit later on in this session, we'll understand how we engage as being the Malchut, the lowest part of the 10 Sefirot, with the upper 9. But we'll get to that in a moment. Question from David: the code of creation is simple because it uses the same code and just repeats it on every level. That is correct. If you break it down, then it is very simple, and it's even simpler than 10 Sefirot. All it is light and kli. And the interaction between them, which is what we'll get on in right now after this question, the interaction between the light and the kli, it built 4 phases of direct light, which in that is 10 Sefirot. I'll take another question which just came in. From David Gill. So David's asking, once the 10 Sefirot are complete, is that the equivalence of form with the Creator? Yes, it is, but it is done 125 times. Every time on a higher level of equivalence, more details are attained. Because just like it was explained in the video, everything in reality is self-similar. So every time you correct a certain quality, you discover a structure of 10 Sefirot on a certain level, and then a new layer is revealed to you. Because if you've already made a correction, then it means that you are ready to rise higher. And every time to rise higher means to discover a new layer that can be corrected. And these layers that are corrected are actually layers of reception. Because at the end of the day, the thought of creation, the purpose of creation, is to receive ultimate fulfillment. That's what Kabbalah teaches, how to receive this ultimate fulfillment. And every formation of this Ten Sefirot, every discovery of it is another layer getting closer to that. Okay, so let's keep going. Let's get a little bit technical here, hopefully not too technical. For some reason, I lost my slideshow. Here it is. Okay, so we'll go back to the slideshow, and while the slides are on the screen, I cannot see your questions, but write them, because as soon as I close it, then I will take a look, just like I did now. Okay, so where were we? We were at right after the broccolis. We were going to talk about the structure of the Ten Sefirot. Okay, so I got my little squiggly line here. Great. So the structure of the Ten Sefirot. So in order to understand the structure of the Ten Sefirot, we need to understand how everything, all of reality, was created, how it was formed. So we'll go back to the very beginning. So in the beginning, there was only this light, and that is called the Keter. That is the first Sefirah. And this light, this desire to give, holds in it the thought of creation, which is to give. To give what? Ultimate pleasure. Something that's difficult for us to perceive what ultimate pleasure is, because when we talk about pleasure, then we usually talk about pleasure that's perceived within the will to receive. And that pleasure is always limited, and it's always fleeting. Some pleasures last longer, and some are completely fleeting. They disappear immediately, like sex and food, and others last longer, like social pleasures, getting honored by others, etc. But eventually, the pleasure disappears because the mechanism through which the pleasure is received is lacking something. Let's put it like that. So back to the light, to the Keter. In it is the thought of creation. That's it. It's just a thought. Now, in order to give this light, so this gave birth to the next phase. And this is actually the first phase. So we're talking about 4 phases of direct light, and the root is called phase 0. So the first phase is the formation of the Kli, and it's also called Chokhmah, which is the name of the second Sefirah. And in this phase, in this first phase, the light and the Kli were together as one. So in complete fulfillment, in ultimate pleasure, and everything seemingly is good. You could say in a way that the thought of creation is achieved here, because the thought of creation was to give this light and give it to something, to someone. And then the Kli was formed, and this is also called the state of Chokhmah. By the way, Keter, its literal meaning in Hebrew means crown. It can also mean koteret, which means like a title or a heading. And it's named that because it's the heading of this entire structure. It's the crown, it's the title of this entire structure. Chokhmah, it literally means wisdom, but it also comes from the word koachma. Chokhmah, koachma. Koachma in Hebrew, koach means in potential. And the reason why it's called in potential is because all of the next phases, which I'll explain in a second, they all exist in potential in this state of Chokhmah. So Keter, or root, is the thought of creation, and the first phase, which is the formation of the Kli, which is called Chokhmah, is when the light and the Kli were in their first state of connection. However, this led to the development of a new phase, because the Kli, it felt what it's like, it felt the Creator, and it felt the goodness of this creating force, or the force of nature, however you want to call it. If Creator raises religious associations, which it's not. It's a force. It's a force of nature. It's not. Don't think of it as any kind of human quality. It's simply a force in reality. So from the Kli being in interaction with this force, it felt that its goodness of giving, and this gave birth to the second phase, to Bchina Bet. And in this second phase, the Kli decided that it wants to be like this creating force. So it wants to give. And this is the formation of the second Bchina, which is also called Bina. And in this state of Bina, then the Kli is trying to be like the Creator, meaning it wants to give, and only give. That's all it wants to do. So Binah, it comes from the word Havana, which literally means in Hebrew understanding, because it understands the Creator, it understands the creating force, and it wants to be like it. So this brings forth to the third Sefirah, Binah. Now it gets a bit tricky, because we have the third phase, which is called Zeir Anpin. And if you're a little bit familiar with the Sefirot, there is no Sefirah called Zeir Anpin. But soon we'll understand what happens in Zeir Anpin. But the birth of this third phase that came from Binah is simple. In Binah, let's go back one. In Binah, the Kli wants to be like the Creator. It wants to give. But it finds that it has nothing to give, because all it is a substance of reception. So how can something which is reception, how can that give anything? It can't. And this gives birth to the third Bchina, called Zeir Anpin, which literally means small face in Aramaic. Zeir is small and Anpin is a face, Partzuf. And the reason why it's called Zeir Anpin is because you could say it's similar to a child that wants to resemble its parent, right? And Zeir Anpin, it wants to resemble the Creator. And it finds that the only way that it can be like the Creator, if it's a substance of reception, then it can do so by receiving, but with the intention in order to give. That's the only way it can resemble the Creator to a certain extent. So it receives, Zeir Anpin receives, in order to give. So you could say that it's like going to your mom's house, who cooked a great meal for you, and you're eating the meal not because you want the pleasure from the food, but because you want to show your mom how much you appreciate her and how great the food is, and by that you know you're giving her pleasure. Even if you don't even like the food, it doesn't matter. And that's an example, so you can imagine what it is to receive with the intention in order to give. And this gives birth to the final phase, because there, in Zeir Anpin, the Kli, it reached something. It became like the Creator to an extent, because it gave, it bestowed. And this gave birth to the fourth and final Bchina, called Malchut, which is a very, very strong Bchina. And the reason why the arrow in Malchut is black is because it has two types of fulfillment in it. It has the fulfillment of the light that was achieved in Zeir Anpin, when it received it in order to give, but a new sensation was formed in the Malchut, and that is the search to be like the Creator. It is the first time that the desire, it felt what it is like to be the Creator, because it bestowed, it received in order to give. And this Malchut is this powerful force, the full will to receive, created, that wants not only to receive all the pleasure, all the fulfillments of creation, but it also wants to achieve the status of the Creator. It wants to be like the Creator, which is incredible. And this formation here, these four phases, they complete the thought of creation. They complete the creation itself. This is the flow of creation. This is how the will to receive was created. So only after these four phases took place, you could say that the creation was completed. Right? So in this creation, so we have a will to receive, and it's all good and it's all there. And now you might be asking, but wait a minute, where are the 10 Sefirot? There are only, well, 3 Sefirot here, or 4, sorry. There's Keter, there's Chokhmah, right? So Keter is the root. There's Chokhmah, which is the first phase. Binah, which is the second, all right? So we have 3 so far. Zeir Anpin, there's no Sefirah called Zeir Anpin. And then there's Malchut, which is the last Sefirah. So there are 6 Sefirot missing. So where are these 6 Sefirot? This is just to see the structure of it. So Keter resembles the root. Chokhmah is the first phase. Binah is the second. Then we skip these 6 and we go to Malchut. So the conclusion is, what's the conclusion here? That Zeir Anpin contains in it these 6 Sefirot. That's the conclusion. Because if all of this structure contains 10 Sefirot, then Zeir Anpin must contain 6. Right, so we have 1, 2, 3, and then Zeir Anpin, which is the third Bechina, it includes these 6 Sefirot. And the Malchut is the final one. I'm going to pause 1 sec just to see if there are any questions. Just going to close the slideshow for a sec to see if there are any questions. Okay, so there is a question here. A question from Funny Games. What's the difference between Pshat and Sod? You said in the previous video. It's a good question. Pshat and Sod, Pshat, Remez, Droosh, and Yesod are also 4 phases that are different representations of the same 4 phases that we just studied. Mariam is asking, so Zeir Anpin, is that where Lishma is? In a way, it is, but to be more accurate, Lishma is when the relationship between the Malchut and the rest of the Sefirot is made. Isn't stage 3 called Tifferet? In some cases you might find it called Tifferet, but we'll see in a second where Tifferet is. So Tifferet is one of the Sefirot that's in Zeir Anpin. A question from Amiros, how do you know you've made a correction? You know because Kabbalah speaks only of spiritual attainment. So it doesn't speak of philosophy, it doesn't speak of theory. So when Kabbalists, when they described this structure of the 10 Sefirot, then as you can see, it's a very detailed structure. You know, it's not something that they imagined or something that they philosophized. It's something that they attained. It's as attaining this structure is as tangible as you can see the computer screen in front of you, as you can touch something, smell it, hear it. Just like these senses are something that's tangible, and the fact that you're looking at a screen now, how do you know you're looking at a screen? Because you can see it clearly in front of you. So similarly here, Kabbalists that attained this structure, attained it as tangibly as you attain the world around you with your 5 senses. All right, so let's keep going, and we'll go a little bit further down the rabbit hole. We're going to zoom in now into the 6 Sefirot of Zeir Anpin. All right? So what's going on there? So we have these 4 Sefirot, like we said, these 4 phases, which are clear. Phase 1, Chokhmah, Binah, Zeir Anpin, and Malchut. And then we said that Zeir Anpin, inside of Zeir Anpin, there's Chesed, Gvura, Tifferet, Netzach, Hod, Yesod, Malchut. So altogether we have 10 Sefirot. Again, you can say them with me. Keter, Chokhmah, Binah, Chesed, Gvura, Tifferet, Netzach, Hod, Yesod, Malchut. So these are the 10 Sefirot, right? And Zeir Anpin contains these 6 Sefirot in them. And remember when we spoke about, like it was years ago, remember 10 minutes ago when we spoke about self-similarity in nature, that if you zoom in, you find the same structure. Ooh, that's cool. If you zoom in, you find the same structure over and over and over again, then Zeir Anpin. That's exactly what it is. So inside of Zeir Anpin, so you have a complete structure, which is, wait a minute, I'm going to get the pointer back on again. So you have Chesed, Gvura, Tifferet, Netzach, Hod, Yesod. And here is where it gets really cool and kind of weird. So Chesed, in the structure of Zeir Anpin, it resembles the Keter. And Gvura, within the structure of Zeir Anpin, resembles Chokhmah. And Tifferet, in the structure of Zeir Anpin, resembles Binah. And Netzach, in the structure of Zeir Anpin, it resembles Zeir Anpin. And Hod, in the structure of Zeir Anpin, resembles Malchut. So in Zeir Anpin, again, you find these four phases. Did we say self-similarity? There you go. And Yesod is, you could say, the glue that sticks them all together. It's a special sefirah, which is the connector, you could say. So inside of Zeir Anpin, there is again a complete structure. That's the other reason why it's called Zeir Anpin, because it's a small face. It includes in it the entire spiritual Partzuf. Partzuf in spirituality means a complete system. So that's the other reason why it's called Zeir Anpin. Correct repeating patterns, David. So what happens if you zoom in to this Zeir Anpin over here? Well, what you'll find is again that same structure, which again includes in it Chesed, Gvura, Tifferet, Netzach, Hod, and Yesod, which in them they resemble again the Keter, Chochmah, Binah, Zeir Anpin, and Malchut. So you could say it's something like this. So you have the entire Ten Sefirot. Within them you have Zeir Anpin, which includes these 6 Sefirot. And in these 6 Sefirot, in this small Partzuf, you have again the entire 10 Sefirot. Keter, Chochmah, Binah, Zeir Anpin, and Malchut. And in this Zeir Anpin, you have again the structure of 10 Sefirot, of the 4 phases of Keter, Chochmah, Binah, Zeir Anpin, and Malchut. And again, you have inside of that, so you understand how this is already going to develop. It just keeps going and keeps going. And the more you zoom in, you keep finding that it's the same structure, which is pretty crazy. And everything in reality, everything, every thought you have, I'm going back to what I said in the beginning, every thought you have, everything around you, everything follows this structure of the 10 Sefirot, because that's the only thing that was created, right? In the 4 phases, we spoke about the formation of creation, of the Kli, of the Malchut. And in these 4 phases, in Keter, which is the root, Chochmah, Binah, Zeir Anpin, and Malchut, in these 4 phases, inside of Zeir Anpin, again, you have this entire structure of the 4 phases, which is actually the 10 Sefirot, and this keeps going and going and going. So no matter how far you zoom in, you keep finding the same pattern over and over again. Let's keep going. Let's see how this connects to other concepts which you might have heard in Kabbalah. Maybe this will connect everything and give you like a aha moment. So you might have heard of the name, Havaya, which is the explicit name of the Creator, Yud K Vav K. So Havaya, which starts off with the tip of the Yud, and then the letter Yud, and then the letter, this is actually the letter Hey, but I wrote the letter Kuf because it's accustomed not to explicitly write out the full name. So instead of Hey, you say K and you write Kuf. So it's Yud K Vav K, and this is also the complete structure of Havaya. These are the different, you could say, different discernments of the light. And this Havaya, it also resembles the 10 Sefirot, which are Keter, Chochmah, Binah, Zeir Anpin, and Malchut. And hopefully by now it's clear to you that when it says Zeir Anpin, there's actually the entire 10 Sefirot in there. Inside of Zeir Anpin is Chesed, Gvura, Tifferet, Netzach, Hod, and Yesod. So the structure of Havaya, the structure of the Sefirot, the structure of the 4 phases, they're all talking about the same structure. And then you have, from the Malchut, you have the evolution of the worlds. Again, it's a structure of self-similarity. So Adam Kadmon resembles Keter, Atzilut, Chochmah, etc. But you can also think of it that from the Malchut, the world evolved after the Malchut was formed. Depends how you want to look at it. So then the worlds of Adam Kadmon, Atzilut, Bria, Yetzirah, and Asiyah, which these 5 worlds are the 5 spiritual worlds. Every one of these worlds has again the same spiritual structure embedded in them. And then again, so 5 times 5 times 5 is 125. Those are the 125 degrees of correction. And then from the world of Asiya, the created beings are formed, which follow root, still, vegetative, animate, and speaking. They resemble the formation of that same creation of the desire. So, like, for example, the first Bchina, which is Yud, which is Chokhmah, which is Atzilut, which is still, it's still because in the first phase, the desire is not independent. It's completely dependent. It's still in relation to the light. And then, so still vegetative, animate, and speaking. And the degree of speaking is the degree that we, as the created beings, we want to reach that state of Adam. We're not talking about how to reach equivalence of form this session. It's a totally different topic related to the soul of Adam Harishon. It's shattering and how we can rebuild this structure, because this structure was actually shattered, it was broken, and the whole wisdom of Kabbalah is how to rebuild it. We might touch upon that a little bit, depending on how much time we have. So basically, this final speaking, Adam, is what is an equivalence of form with the Creator, which eventually leads us back up to the final correction, to Boreh, or Creator, or Nature. Again, call it whatever you like. Just don't be confused by what you might have learned that the Creator it is when you were in kindergarten. It's not a big guy sitting up in the skies with a big beard looking down on you and saying, did you behave nicely? If you will, then you'll get that, and if you don't, then you'll get that. No, it's a force of nature. It does respond. There is interaction between us and this force, and there are consequences. If we follow this law of nature, then we reach balance with it, we reach harmony. If we don't follow this law of nature, then in Kabbalah it's called the path of suffering. It's simply choosing to ignore, or not even choosing, it's just ignoring the law of nature and getting a result from that. So if I stick my finger into the socket, I can't complain that I get electrocuted. I'm not following the laws of nature, right? And I can get angry at the electricity as much as I want, but the electricity is simply a law, it's a force, and I can either learn how to use it and benefit greatly from it, like you are now, watching this on your phone or your computer with a screen and everything around you, and probably you have air conditioning or heater, depending where you are. So I can use this electricity correctly, or I can use it incorrectly and stick my finger in the socket. Don't do that. Do not stick your finger in a socket. Of course, it's just an example, so don't try it at home. Okay, so back to this. Hopefully this gives you kind of order between a lot of things you might have been exposed to in the wisdom of Kabbalah, the Sefirot, the worlds, the different phases. Also Pshat, Remez, Droosh, and Yesod, which there was a question about. They also exist in this structure of four: Pshat, Remez, Droosh, and Yesod. And all these structures together, they're called the tree of life. That's the tree of life. So if you want to know what the tree of life is, this is it. It's this entire structure of reality, which is simply Ten Sefirot. And if you want to even simplify it more, it's light and kli, and everything that came as a result of the interaction between the light and the kli. And that's called the tree of life. And there was a question last week. I can't remember by who, but I wrote it down. There was a question. Where is it? Okay, I do not see the question here, but I remember it, and the question was, what is the connection between the tree of life and the tree of knowledge? Is there even a connection? The answer is yes, there is a connection. Tree of life is this entire structure we just spoke about. And the tree of knowledge, well, that's the same structure, only click, come on, click, that's the tree of knowledge. The tree of knowledge is simply attaining this structure ourselves. It's also called the tree of knowledge, good and evil. Because by attaining this structure, we do it independently. We attain these forces, which are called good and evil. And these two forces, they complement each other. There is nothing that's bad in reality, actually. There is no like demons and demonic forces that are trying to push us away and harm us. No, Everything that exists was created from the light, good and evil. And the correction of these forces is what brings us to the transition to the tree of knowledge, to understanding, to attaining what good and evil are, to using this evil inclination, which is what was created. And that's not good or bad. It's simply what was created, and using that in the correct way, with the correct intention. And that's already becoming the tree of knowledge of good and evil. That's the good. That's discovering the good. So everything you have in you, every negative quality you think you have, everything bad you see around you, it's not bad. It's just not being used correctly. And everything you have inside of you is completely unique and created for a reason. And even if you think it's bad, it's just because you haven't discovered the correct use of it. And that's something that's really, in my opinion, beautiful in the wisdom of Kabbalah, is that it tells you that you are unique. And the reason why you are unique is because you yourself are this piece from this entire structure. Only you're a piece and you need to rebuild it. But since everything is self-similar, then you, even as this shattered part, you yourself hold the structure of 10 Sefirot inside of you. And everything you have in you, everything that you think is good and bad, it's all destined to reach its perfect state, where everything you have and everything you do, you'll discover that it's you playing your unique part in this entire system. So Kabbalah doesn't talk about restricting the desires, even though there is a term called a restriction in Kabbalah. Restriction is simply a process in using the desire correctly. So we have a question. So the Kli is not at fault? No, the Kli is not at fault at all. The Kli is a Kli. It was created in order to receive. And it says, I created the evil inclination. I, meaning the Creator, I created the evil inclination. So how is there any fault in there for us? No. But it also continues, and I created the Torah, which Torah means light, as a spice. So you need the light to create, to correct this evil inclination. So let's continue a little bit longer about the Malchut and the upper nine, because this is where it becomes practical. You might be asking, all right, so I understand the structure, it's all very good, it's all amazing, everything is fractal, self-similarity, okay, what can I do about it? So in fact, there is a lot you can do about it, and to understand what you can do about it, you need to understand about the Malchut and the upper nine. We touched upon it very, very lightly last week, but hopefully in this session, you'll already have a lot more depth to it and understanding. So the Malchut is this at the bottom. So we said that each Sephirah has its own quality, and these qualities are connected by complementing each other. And what we are, our egoistic desire, is called the Malchut. And the Malchut is like this black hole. So if you know what a black hole is, it just absorbs light. It's not that it's black, it's just that it's lack of light. That's what true black is. Something that's really black, absolute black, which doesn't exist in reality, by the way. I mean, it doesn't exist in the material world, because every black you see, if you can see it, then you can see some reflection from it, so it's not pure black. But pure black means lack of light. It doesn't reflect anything. So what you would see instead of black is just a void. And that's the Malchut. The Malchut is pure black. It's a void. It doesn't let any light come out of it. And how to attain this system of the upper nine. So that's the way to attain the 10 Sefirot. You do not attain every Sefirah individually. No, that would be like, I don't know, trying to build a human body by taking a heart and, I don't know, a brain, and then bringing it to life, which science might be able to do soon. by the way. But what you do to attain the structure of 10 Sefirot is you only need to correct the relationship between the Malchut, which is you, and the upper 9 Sefirot. And who are the upper 9 Sefirot? Well, theoretically, it's everything around you. And the reason why you see it as shattered is because you are still this black hole, this egoistic desire called Malchut, which again is not a bad thing. In it is the potential for you to reach independence. Because the only difference between the tree of life, which is the system from up down, where it started off in perfection and it slowly disappeared and these Sefirot stopped illuminating, and the tree of knowledge, which is attaining the system from bottom up, is that by attaining it from bottom up, the tree of knowledge, you're also attaining the purpose of creation. That's what you're attaining. And the purpose of creation is attained by correcting the relationship between the Malchut and the upper 9 Sefirot. So what are the 9 Sefirot? It's theoretically everything that's outside of you, but to make it closer and to make it something that's more achievable, then it's best to work in an environment of people who understand this and who also want to achieve it, and then each one towards the others sees himself as the Malchut and the others as the 9 Sefirot. That's what we do in Kabbalah, by the way. It's an environment that we built with the intention to create it to mimic the 10 Sefirot, where each one who enters this environment learns about this system, learns about the structure of it, and can practice this relationship between the Malchut and the 10 Sefirot. So we're pretty much out of time. Let's see if we have maybe just a really quick question. I'm just going to shut down the presentation. I can see on Facebook here. So if we rebuild ourselves, we change the reality around us since it's all repeating. That's a question from David. Yes, David, that is correct. Because it's not that you rebuild yourself, it's that you discover this structure. You discover its existence already. And when you discover it, it's like, take a pair of sunglasses. I have orange sunglasses with orange lenses which filter out blue light, something related with sleep disorders. Anyway, when I put them on, everything looks different. It's not that reality changed, it's simply that I changed. So when you discover this structure, it's similar to putting on this new lens, and you suddenly see that everything in reality, it's not exactly how you thought it would be. And things that seemed negative, they're only because you're observing them from a black point called Malchut. Let's see if we have some more questions on YouTube. What's the relationship between the proper use of Yesod and ascending from the bottom up? That's a question from Mouth of Gvura. So the role of Yesod is to be the connector. It's the glue that connects the Sefirot together. And the relationship between the proper use of Yesod is the same relationship between the proper use of all of the Sefirot. The Sefirah, from the word sapphire, illuminates. It wants to shine, and the only way it can shine is by correcting the relationship between the Malchut, this black hole, to the upper 9 Sefirot. Let's conclude with another clip from Kabbalist Dr. Michael Lattman, where he talks a little bit about the spiritual worlds and the practical work that we have in order to reach this structure called 10 Sefirot. So let's take a quick look. Here it is.
What I understand, we have 5 worlds in which we have 125 degrees, and each world is a system of laws. Now, in this entire system, where's the creator? Does he operate these systems hierarchically from top down, or sometimes he comes down and operates us directly? He's everywhere. This is a system that exists only with respect to us. I'm, suppose, in the middle, and around me there is such, say, degrees of the expansion of the force. The Creator fulfills everything. For Him to be everywhere, He simply fulfills everything. For Him there is neither small nor great nor internal or external, but it's all with respect to me. So, I, being in this middle, central point, having to expand myself, I expand myself up to the first, second, third, fourth, fifth worlds. It's me extending my receptacles, my corrections, meaning I raise my ego every time from the degrees of Shoresh, Aleph, Bet, Gimel, and Daled. It's my ego increasing, and I correct my ego, and instead of it, I achieve bestowal. And this is how I perceive all the worlds inside me, as if towards me they existed externally, and I return them to myself, to my inner kli, inner vessel.
Okay. So I can still say there are many questions here, but unfortunately we're not going to have time to take them. We'll just conclude maybe with a practical call to action. So, if you want to discover Ten Sefirot, you have to have an environment that you can build the correct relationship between Malchut and the upper nine. In those relationships, you'll discover every single Sefirah. You'll discover what Yesod is, crypto. You'll discover what Tifferet is. You'll discover everything, because you'll attain this complete structure. And in order to do that, you have to work in some kind of environment. I assume Rachel is going to post a link to Kabbalah there. You can find a free course. We already have about a few thousands of students signed up there already, so you can join them. And a lot of it is built on the interactions, and there are forums there where students interact with each other. It's not, I don't see it as a regular forum. It's a place where people are constantly trying to discover the relationship between who they are and the rest of reality. And by doing so every time, even before you attain this complete structure, you'll already begin to sense like a GPS new things that you'll find inside of you. And yes, this hat has the Bnei Baruch logo on it, which is a tree. Unfortunately, I will link you to a place where you could get this hat, although I don't think we have one right now, but maybe we will soon. But that's why Bnei Baruch, that's why Kabbalah, that's why this logo is a tree, because the tree of life is this entire structure from the top down, and that's the tree of life. And we want to create a place where we can climb back up to reach this tree of knowledge from bottom up, where we can attain it ourselves, where we can be as one with this force of nature, with the upper force. So thank you very much. Hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please click the like button, click the share button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet. We're going live every Sunday at the same time. It's 2 p.m. Central European time. Well, you can calculate based on that the rest of the times. So it was great to be here, and thank you all, and we'll see you guys next week.